We are super excited to welcome Alex Aiello today, who's a community educator at Connect. They're going to be talking about technological abuse with us.
So today we're talking about technology abuse, and I'm coming from Connect NYC, which is a domestic violence prevention and support organization. We partner with families and communities to build safe families and peaceful communities. And I'm a community educator there, which means that I give presentations about topics related to domestic violence and abuse. So before we get into technology abuse, I wanted to define intimate partner violence, because technology abuse is a form of intimate partner violence or abuse. So IPV is the actual or threatened physical, sexual, psychological, which is verbal, emotional, or spiritual, and economic abuse that impairs the ability of someone to function in a self-determining and healthy way or causes the person to be afraid. So self-determination is the ability to make your own decisions for yourself. So if an abusive person is getting in the way of making your own decisions, making your own choices, or inducing fear within you, that would be a form of intimate partner violence. What we want to remember about it is that it's a pattern of coercive behavior. Coercive behavior is behavior that is forceful, and the goal is to establish and maintain power and control. So if we're going to remember one thing about intimate partner violence, it's that it's a pattern of power and control, which is why we often use this wheel, the power and control wheel, which shows the different ways that power and control can be used to enact violence. So we've got using intimidation, emotional abuse, isolation, minimizing and denying blaming, using children or male privilege, economic abuse, and coercion and threats. So these are just some examples of the tactics that people use in order to gain power and control within relationships. I'm just going to show a brief video that is sort of showing an example of technology abuse.
I haven't seen him for 3 weeks, but it's like he's still here. Texts, calls, emails, Facebook. I've tried to block him, and he just finds new ways of getting to me. Messages from unknown numbers, all day and night. He's angry, he's sorry, he's hurt. I'm a bitch, a slut. The love of his life, the only one who's really understood him, the one who destroyed him by leaving. I've changed my number, but he always gets the new one, somehow, from someone. And it starts again. I love you, I hate you, I have nothing left to live for now. I thought it couldn't get worse. I was wrong. Now if a friend tags me in a post, he leaves a negative comment so everyone can see. No matter how fast it's removed, people have seen it. People know what he thinks about me. And it's horrible. This isn't just a bad breakup. It's so much more. But no one wants to take it seriously. I could make a police report, but he's not turning up at my door, so what can they do? Doesn't make it less scary. I'm scared. I don't even know how to be myself anymore. I check Facebook constantly to see what he's posting on my friends' timelines, but I don't post anything on mine because of what he might do. It's like I've disappeared. And everyone says, ignore him, but how can I? There are photos of me, naked. He can do what he wants with them. That's what he said. That's what he threatens. Post them to friends, share them with family, with work. It's too much. I'm scared of my phone. How crazy is that?
So defining technological abuse here is the use of technology or the internet to bully, harass, stalk, intimidate, or control a partner. And this behavior is often a form of psychological abuse that takes place online. So that sort of emotional abuse that is being done in the form of online. And it's important to note that 90% of programs, like online platforms, report that abusers misuse technology to stalk, harass, and control victims. So all of these different platforms that we are on are being used in ways to gain power and control over a partner. So I'm going to go through different forms of technology abuse. I just wanted to show this before we get into that as this is a power and control wheel that is specific to online abuse. So the orange circles show the different tactics that one might use, like threats, stalking, grooming, non-consensual pornography. These are all examples of tactics that people use to gain power and control, and we'll get more into that now. So first is social media abuse. So this is using online platforms like here, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook to control and have power over a partner. So these are some examples of the way that social media abuse can take place. So a partner may want to control who someone is following on social media or who they are interacting with. They could demand or steal someone's social media passwords, so sort of getting in the way of their privacy. People often create fake profiles in the survivor's name or pretend to be the survivor online. Those are forms of social media abuse. Also creating fake profiles just of a random identity that you don't know so that they can follow you and contact you when you have maybe blocked them on a different account. And then, as we saw in the video, posting or threatening to post photos or information without your permission. So we always should have the right to choose what is going up about us online. So things shouldn't be posted without our consent or shouldn't be threatened to be posted. Making degrading comments on social media posts, another thing that we saw in the video, sort of a form of bullying and harassment. And then lastly, we have doxing. Doxing is when private or identifying information is posted online. So, for example, someone might post someone's address so that people have access to that private information about them without their permission. So that's all forms of social media abuse. The next form of abuse I wanted to talk about is stalking. So defining stalking, it's a pattern of repeated and unwanted attention, harassment, or contact directed at a specific person that would cause someone to feel afraid. So again, abuse is always about inducing fear in someone, making someone feel afraid. And it's also a pattern. So it's repeated over time. So these are just some examples of the way that stalking can take place online. So using technology like spyware or GPS to monitor activities. So say going through your phone, looking at your maps and seeing where you have been going and then following you there. Using smart home technology, smart speakers or cameras to track movement, communication, and activities. It's pretty straightforward. Tracking social media activity, so seeing what you're doing, who you're interacting with, and sort of trying to control that. And then also spoofing. So spoofing is calls and texts from a stalker that appear to be someone else. So similar to what we spoke about before, when you may have blocked someone, but they are using a different phone number or appearing to be someone else in order to contact you when you've tried to limit their contact with you. So just important to note that 80% of stalking victims are stalked through technology. So technology plays a huge role in stalking, and just something to be aware of in the way that our activities may be monitored for people to gain power and control over us. Next, we have reproductive coercion. This is when a person's choices about reproductive health are taken away by an abuser through control, threats, and violence. So again, all of these types of abuse are related to someone trying to gain power and control, and this is specifically over reproductive health. So some examples of how this can happen on technology is sometimes people use apps to track when their period might be coming or when they're most fertile, and someone could steal information from those apps to track when they could get someone pregnant or when they may be on their period, and that's private information that, shouldn't be shared. Could also be stealing information about a personal health from online medical platforms. So we know a lot of doctors and hospitals now use online platforms to communicate about health, and sometimes people may try to access that information to control their partner or know intimate details about their health that they don't want to be shared. So another common type of abuse is verbal abuse, and this takes place on technology as well. Verbal abuse is the use of language to control or demean a person. So this is typically what we would think of when we think of like online bullying. So some examples could be dead naming or using incorrect pronouns. So this means that if there's a trans person that has changed their name, using their old name, their dead name, on purpose in order to demean them, or using their incorrect pronouns to sort of cause offense. It could be also using insults, any type of threats or slurs. Hate speech, using someone's identities against them and saying hateful things in terms of their identity. Slut shaming often takes place a lot with younger women online, maybe like commenting slut shamey things on photos. And then lastly, flaming. Flaming is a flood of hostile messages. So like texting someone 15 times, really rude and mean, bullying things. That would be flaming, a form of verbal abuse. Another common form of abuse that takes place on technology increasingly is financial abuse. So that's when someone controls their partner's finances or their ability to provide for themselves. This could be tracking purchases online and punishing. So seeing, okay, you just shopped at this store. Why would you spend your money there or our money there? Preventing someone from spending money in the way that they want and punishing them for spending in a way that they choose to. It could also be not allowing access to online financial information. So a survivor's partner could take complete control over the finances and not allow the survivor to be aware of what the financial situation is or have any agency in that. And then in terms of impacting someone's ability to provide for themselves, could be employment sabotage. So an example of this could be emailing your boss that you're a terrible worker and that you deserve to be fired, or just like contacting your workplace unprofessionally and leading to you being let go, or ruining someone's credit score. This can happen if someone is opening credit cards in your name and then ruining your credit score, which would impact your ability to provide for yourself, maybe to get housing or just have a healthy financial standing. With so much of finances happening online now, the impact of technology on financial abuse is increasing, and just something we want to be aware of when we're doing online banking. Then we have sexual abuse that can take place on technology. So just defining sexual abuse, it's any act of non-consensual sexual contact as a result of force, violence, threats, fear, or deception. So we may think of sexual abuse only in a physical, like in-person sense, but in fact, it can happen online as well, because it's a form of sexual contact. So these are some examples of sexual abuse on technology. So first we have down blousing and upskirting. So down blousing is taking a photo of someone down their blouse, and upskirting is taking a photo of someone's up their skirt without their consent. So this is something that is happening more frequently. We also have sexual surveillance. So just trying to control someone's sexual activities and maybe recording things without consent. So that goes into non-consensual pornography. Any sort of recording without consent or knowledge would be considered sexual abuse. Unsolicited explicit images or videos. So being sent explicit images without being asked first if that was okay. Sometimes people can also do this using Bluetooth and AirDrop. I know I've heard of some people being on the subway and their Bluetooth is on, and then someone may just try to AirDrop them an explicit photo without their consent, which can be very off-putting and scary. We also have abusive sexting. So just sending sexual messages in a way that makes you uncomfortable or fearful. Sex trafficking can also happen online. Yeah, just like recruiting people online and they don't have full knowledge of what they are being recruited for. And then lastly, we have sextortion. Someone might threaten to post intimate photos if you don't send them money. So that is sextortion. So saying you need to send me this amount of money or I'm going to post this explicit image of you. And these are all just ways that people use power and control sexually on technology to abuse someone. So those are all the different kinds of abuse that may take place on technology. Now we're going to talk a little bit about safety planning. So how do we stay safe online, knowing that all of these things are taking place and can take place in the future? So a safety plan is a plan of action steps taken to increase safety for survivors. It's important to remember that it's not only an escape plan. So sometimes safety planning may be planning how to escape or end the relationship, but sometimes it can also occur in a relationship. If someone's living together, how can we increase our safety while they're still in a partnership? It can also occur after a relationship. So if the relationship is ended, but there's still these threats of power and control, a safety plan may be necessary. So when we're doing safety planning, safety can't be guaranteed, but it is a list of strategies and action steps that can be put in place to try to increase the safety. It's also important to know that safety plans need to be individualized. So we can't just make, oh, this is a technology safety plan and it works for everyone, because everyone has different forms of what safety looks like for them and different things that are going on within their relationship. So safety planning needs to be individualized. And it should also be dynamic. Things are constantly changing in terms of a relationship, what someone might be doing to gain power and control. They can change their methods. So we need to make sure that we are changing our safety plan as necessary. So it's an ongoing process. And then lastly, it's a survivor-led process. The survivor is the expert of their experience and of their relationship, which is why it needs to be a survivor-led process, because they have the most information about what safety might look like in the ways that they are not feeling safe right now. So this is an example of a chart that you may use in trying to make a safety plan. So these are just questions that you want to think about when forming a safety plan. So first, what is the potential risk? What is making us feel unsafe, or what could happen in the future that would be unsafe for us? Who or what is the cause of that harm? So this might be the abusive partner. This could also be online technology platforms, anything that is involved in the gaining of power and control. Then who is the target of the harm and risk? This could be the survivor. It could also be survivor's children, the survivor's family, the survivor's friends, because we know that abusive partners may target survivors, but can also target loved ones as well. And then we think about, okay, what is a possible safety action? What can we do to try to increase safety in this situation? And this just requires creative brainstorming of what safety can look like. And then lastly, you want to think about who will do and support this action. So not only who is doing the action, but also we want to make sure that we have supports in place to feel safe and that we're not taking this on alone. Even if it's, okay, I'm going to turn off my phone at this time, but I have a friend that I'm going to reach out to at a later time just to let them know that I'm safe. So you want to make sure that you're getting people involved. So yeah, just some ideas of questions to think through when trying to plan for safety. So now I'm going to go through a few steps of how we can stay safe online when technology abuse is happening. So the first thing we want to do is identify the abuse. We want to look for patterns. As I said before, intimate partner violence and technology abuse is all about patterns of power and control. Are there specific apps, devices, or methods of communications that are making you feel unsafe? So thinking through specifically what is being used on technology to make you feel unsafe. So we want to be as specific as possible so that we can really target that specific thing. Then we want to document the incidents. So it's recommended to keep an incident log and save everything related to the event. So say a partner is constantly texting you, harassing you, and bullying messages, maybe taking a screenshot of that and keeping it in a folder on your phone, maybe a private folder that is locked that someone can't go into, but making sure that you're saving things related to that event. Yeah, and keeping a log, because as we know, it's a pattern. When we keep a log, we're able to more clearly see the pattern. And then we also can report the incident or seek a protective order. So a protective order is when someone is legally prohibited from contacting or being in close proximity to someone else. That's often given to survivors when they are in an unsafe situation. So that's always an option that you can seek. Number one, identify the abuse.
If you are reporting outside of a social media site, like to law enforcement or to, the appropriate agents, do you have recommendations on where you go for that?
I would recommend connecting with a domestic violence organization first so that you
Gotcha.
can just get the best resources available and also have someone there with you that can advocate for you and know all the information. Number two, prioritize safety. So these are some strategies that we might use to prioritize our safety. First, we can consider using a safer device. If someone's partner is constantly going through their phone, maybe they get another phone that their partner is not aware of that they can use to contact their friends about the abuse if it's not safe to use the phone that their partner is constantly looking through. Another way to prioritize safety is getting more information by connecting to a victim advocate or a local domestic violence organization. So it's important to know your rights and also the laws surrounding technology abuse. So in order to become more familiar with those things, you can connect to a victim advocate or a local domestic violence organization like Connect, who can provide you more information about your rights. Then it's really important to trust our instincts. So we all have gut feelings about certain things, and we want to trust those feelings. If something is inside of us is saying, this doesn't feel right, I'm not feeling safe, trust that. And then strategically planning how to use technology. So when are you going to be going online? When are the safe times to be able to do that? What apps are safest for you? And how can you protect yourself online? So just constantly thinking through this when you're using technology, just to try to protect yourself in any way that you can. And then number three is increasing security. So these are some ways that we may increase our security online. Obviously, we can change our passwords and usernames. It's a good idea to change your passwords frequently, just in case. And you can change your usernames as well to something that may not be an identifying username. So maybe not your full name, your last name, something that could identify you. It may be better for your security to use a username that doesn't have identifying information. Then we want to check our devices and settings. So first we can check privacy settings to make sure other devices aren't connected to you. So on your phone, you can see if you have one device or if it's like family sharing and there are multiple devices connected, just making sure to take a look at that to ensure that it's only you in your privacy settings. Then you can turn off device sharing settings like Bluetooth when not being used. So this can protect against that example I used of people airdropping photos on the train to strangers. If you turn off your Bluetooth, then someone isn't able to send you things without your permission. Then you also want to check up on your apps and delete any apps that you don't use because they may still be collecting your information. So deleting anything that is not useful to you and also that you aren't familiar with, just in case an app has somehow come on your phone that you are not aware of and not being used by you, just deleting that to ensure that you only have on your phone things that are needed and necessary. You also want to check out your location sharing settings to protect your location. So just taking a look every so often, who am I sharing my location with? Are these the people that I want to be sharing it with? Is that safe for me? Because you never need to share your location if that's not something you're comfortable with. And then lastly, considering camera and audio devices. So phones often have cameras, our laptops also have cameras. So we can consider when we're not using the camera, maybe putting a piece of tape over it or a piece of paper covering it, just to take an extra precautionary measure to ensure that our camera isn't being used when we are not intending to use it. Same with audio devices. So things like Alexa or Google Home sometimes can be listening into what is being said in the space. So just ensuring that those privacy settings are on those devices. And then I also wanted to briefly go over just online dating. As we know, this is becoming more and more popular, but it's important to make sure we're taking precautionary measures to stay as safe as possible when dating online. So first, Consider using a different name on dating apps or not giving out identifying information. So even if it's using a letter, like for me, I could just say A instead of putting Alex, so that my information isn't just my name and my information isn't going out to anyone on the apps. Same with photos that you may be using on the apps, making sure that street names or your home address isn't in the background of the photo, just to make sure that your identifying information is staying safe. This is a good idea whether you're online dating or not. Searching for yourself online to see what information is available, what comes up when people are searching for you online. Is there anything that you are uncomfortable with being out there that can maybe be removed because people may search for you online? Then take as much time as you need to share personal information, because once it's shared, it cannot be taken back. So just being really careful about who we share with and building trust over time, knowing that we never need to share anything that we don't want to. Then we also recommend doing an internet search on a potential date. So the same way that we're searching for ourselves online, searching for a potential date online, seeing if there's anything there that may be dangerous or unsafe or a red flag. This can be for online dating or just communicating with people online, in email, chatting. Be careful about opening attachment or links, because sometimes if you click on the link or the attachment, it could be spyware. So then if you click on it, someone may then be able to see what you're doing on your phone or access everything on your phone or your computer. So you want to just be really careful about opening any attachment or links. And then in terms of actually going on an online date, it's recommended that you meet in a public space, and also that you let a friend know of your plans so that you can check in with them afterwards. Hey, I'm safe. If you don't hear from me by this certain time, check in, make sure I'm okay, things like that. And then lastly, as I said before, trust your instincts. We are all the experts of our own experiences, and we know ourselves when we're feeling unsafe, when something is not feeling right. Trust that. So in terms of supporting survivors, a lot of times survivors are very uncomfortable with sharing about experiences of dating abuse because they're not listened to or believed. So that's the number one thing we want to do when someone is sharing with us about abuse. We want to listen and believe them. We also want to make sure that we're checking in with someone. So if someone shares with you that they're feeling unsafe in some way, don't let that be the last time that you talk about it. Check in with them to make sure that they know that you care about them and that you're a resource. Then offer to help with safety planning. So as we went over, it's important to have support in your safety plan. So people that you can rely on, who can check in on you, or even brainstorm ideas with you. It's always a good idea to be a resource. Lastly, reminding survivors, 1, it's not their fault, and 2, they don't deserve this. It's really important to do this because in abusive relationships, oftentimes the abuser is saying, this is your fault, you deserve this to happen. There's a lot of blaming going on. So we want to sort of try to counteract that by reminding survivors it's not their fault and they don't deserve it. So some last things to remember before we wrap up. First, everyone has the right to privacy. It is just your right to have privacy, to not have to share things you don't want to share. Some things can remain only for you, and that's okay. Even if someone is pressuring you, you always have the right to privacy. You also never need to send texts or photos that you are uncomfortable sending. And it's okay to turn off your phone and take time to respond to messages. Just remembering that we have power and control, and it's important just to know that it's okay to take time. It's okay to not do what someone is asking you to do if it's making you uncomfortable. You have the right to agency and to make your own choices and self-determination. I also wanted to give my email. You can always feel free to reach out to me for support, for any other questions you might have, or to discuss anything related to technology abuse or dating abuse in general.